Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond.
I'm Nick Bodmer, and on this week's episode, we're talking about traveling with camera gear and syncing audio on the go.
Plus, your questions about storyboarding, tripods, and whether you need an infrared neutral density filter.
Infrared neutral density filter?
Yeah.
You said the magic words.
One of our questions today. So, I am not in my normal place. I'm in Illinois right now for Thanksgiving.
In Illinois. Where in Illinois are you, my friend?
I'm in the Chicagoland area. I'm close to where you and I went to high school.
Yes, indeed.
Actually, so I'm at Amy's parents' house, and this is where I keep some stuff that I don't have room for in my tiny New York apartment. So I happen to have our Gregory Middle School yearbook here.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good. I'm pleased about that. And what are you going to do with said yearbook, Griffin?
Well, if you're okay with it, I'd love to show everyone what we looked like when we met in 8th grade.
I think we should. I think it's funny you have that.
There is a giant signature here from Nick Bodmer, and it says, I hope you have a great summer. See you around.
And in fact, I did see you around. And continue to see you around. How many years ago was that?
Oh, geez.
Was that in like 96?
This was 98, so it was 19 years ago that we met.
Wow.
You know who else
here
is
we
in
are,
our...
still pals.
Another person I found in our yearbook is Chris Redd, who's on Saturday Night Live now.
Yeah, cast member of Saturday Night Live. Yeah, we saw that last week we were watching, and Kristen and I noticed. Oh, he went to school with us.
Yeah, I didn't know that he went to our middle school and our high school. Did you know him back then?
I did not. In fact, I didn't know who he was till my wife pointed it out last week.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I didn't know that. It wasn't in our class, to be fair. That's why we didn't know.
Another thing I have here that I found that I keep here is I have a big leather camera bag with some Digital 8 tapes here.
Boom.
And I have the camera that you and I both used to use, the Sony Handycam DCR TRV 320.
Gosh, we did a lot of damage with those cameras.
This was a standard definition camera, and it's funny that like this was really my camera until I had an HD camera, until we got the GH1 in 2010.
And in fact, it was your very first infrared camera as well.
Yeah, it does have an infrared. It has night vision,
which was always fun to play with.
Yeah.
So, where you are right now, correct me if I'm wrong, you are sitting in the birthplace of the Hey Indie Filmmakers podcast, are you not?
Oh yeah, this is actually the room I'm in is where we recorded our promo that came out in December of last year.
Wow, we're coming up on 1 year, buddy.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. I guess I should walk you through, because I'm traveling, how I've set up the podcast today, because I don't have my normal setup. I have brought one light. I brought my flex light, which is shining at me now. Actually, I do have another light down here. I have my this company Lytra sent me a light. It's kind of like the Lume Cube. In some ways, it's better, and in some ways, it's not.
Lytra. Then that's not the same camera company that does like the infinite focus light capture cameras, is it? I
think you're thinking that's called Lytro.
Oh, okay.
With a Y.
Slightly different.
Yeah. But I have this little mini light. It probably wouldn't have done much for me for the podcast, just because I think it only lasts about 30 minutes to an hour. May not make it through the podcast. But I have the flex light plugged into power that's working for me. I have my Asden SGM. No, not the SGM 1X. This is the SGM 250CX, the one that I recently reviewed.
So many mics you can't even keep track.
Yeah. Well, I figured after that review, after I realized how good it is, it's also one of my more compact mics. I just figured for travel it would make sense to bring that one. And I'm using the Pedco Ultra Clamp to clamp it to a chair right now.
Ding.
Oh, also, I'm using a coat rack to hold the light up. The flex light.
Because you are an indie filmmaker on the go. Doesn't travel with much gear.
I don't even know where my second Pedco Ultra Clamp is, so I was a little bit worried because I was thinking like I may need to mount the light with that, and may need to mount the the microphone with that. But that's why I'm using the coat rack.
You seem like you should always have 3 or 4 Pedco Ultra clamps with you at all times.
I really should. At my peak, I had 3. I broke one. I should probably just replace it. I'm not even sure where my second one is.
They're so expensive, it's hard to replace.
Yeah, only $20. Another thing that I found here in this house is I have my teleprompter here.
The one you built?
Yeah, the big wooden teleprompter.
Indie Mogul? That's funny.
Yeah, this was like my first Indie Mogul project. It's kind of heavy because it's made out of plywood, but it does the job. It's got a little sleeve in the back for the camera lens to go through, and then it has a mirror, so you could put your teleprompter monitor here on the bottom, and then it reflects the words into your face. People ask me about that thing a lot, like if I'm still using it, but I just found right after I made it, I realized I'm not very good on camera if I'm reading. I kind of need to get the words internalized in my head first. I also brought my infrared camera. I brought my 12mm prime lens to shoot this podcast. I brought my 8 to 18mm because I've been enjoying that lens. And I brought a 25mm prime, which I thought would be good if I need to take any portraits for Thanksgiving.
Cool. So you were well equipped.
Yeah, less stuff than I normally travel with, but actually quite a bit of stuff just to bring to Thanksgiving. Well, because I know we have to shoot the podcast, and then also this Monday I'm going to shoot the Cyber Monday video that I do every year.
Oh, that's exciting! I made my first Cyber Monday purchase already.
Oh, really? Well,
Except for it's not Cyber Monday.
Not Cyber Monday. What'd you buy?
You want to see it? Should I go grab it? It's right over here.
Sure.
Here, I'll be right back. Here we go.
Is it heavy?
It's heavy.
What is...
It is a Dell 27-inch monitor.
Oh, wow.
It is the S2716 DGR Dell gaming monitor. Because I'm
Did you buy it for gaming?
I did. So I have a kind of a crappy 27-inch monitor here. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the knockoff. It's a crossover brand, and they use the discarded panels that like Apple doesn't want. So it's like an almost good monitor, but didn't quite make Apple's cut.
Yeah.
But I've had it for a number of years, so it's time to upgrade. So,
what does a gaming monitor do that makes it special?
Well, Griffin, that's a great question. Quite a bit. A much higher refresh rate, so it has a 144 hertz refresh rate as opposed to 60, right? So when you're playing video games, you want those frame rates really high.
Like, can games support frame rates that are like up as high as 144?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, if your GPU is powerful enough, that is.
Wow.
And it has a technology called G-Sync in it. So normally, you can imagine a monitor that refreshes at 60 hertz. If your frame rate drops below that, you can introduce some weird image artifacts and tearing and things like that. So it has G-Sync, which the screen automatically adapts the frame rate, the refresh rate, to the frame rate of the video. So
cool.
If your FPS drop from 120 to 80, it smoothly matches that. So
yeah,
pretty exciting.
Have you opened this up yet?
I have not. I just I got home 2 minutes before we started recording, so it is sitting in the box.
What kind of deal was it?
Well, it's normally like, I think it retails at like $700, but like normally you can find it for like $550, and Dell.com was going to have it on Thanksgiving morning for $399, which is a really good deal.
Yeah.
But then just today I glanced and Best Buy had it on sale for $350, so I just picked it up from Best Buy.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing is this monitor is not good for video and image editing.
Why is that?
The color, it's not a super accurate color. It's not an IPS panel. It's a TN panel, which normally people are like, ooh, those look terrible. This one's supposed to look pretty decent for a TN panel, but again, more for gaming than for video editing. So
yeah,
still have my Mac for video editing.
I'm curious. You are not traveling for Thanksgiving, but you have family there.
Yep,
visiting
everyone
you in
has
Las
come
Vegas?
here. Yeah, we've got kind of a full house, so that's fun.
So you don't have to travel with your gear, but I'm curious, are you anticipating that you're going to be, like, do people expect you to shoot video or photos?
Photos, yes. Video, no. I'm too bad at actually ever editing anything and putting it out, so no one expects anything from a video perspective, which is good because I've got 3 kids. I don't have time to do that. But I will shoot some photos. It will be lovely. Now, you got some new gear recently as well. Are we going to talk about that, or is that a surprise for later?
What gear did I get?
You sent me a photo of it. You called to ask me about it. You bought it right before you left.
Oh, the my new MacBook Pro.
That's the one.
That's what I have with me here. Yeah, my MacBook Pro is my previous one was 5 years old and still worked pretty well. But well, I say it worked well, but like the screen would flicker and the battery didn't work anymore, so it was always had to be plugged in. And I just realized,
so pretty good. It worked pretty good for a laptop. You know, you couldn't see anything and it wouldn't stay on. But beyond,
it also
just
got
2 small issues.
It also always got really hot when I put it on my legs. So yeah, I couldn't even like use it on airplanes anymore if there was no power. And I just realized for all the editing I do on the go, and especially for how much time I spend exporting big podcast video files or other video files I'm working on, I need something that can keep up with me. So I got the latest MacBook Pro. And so far, the only thing that's annoying me is that everything is USB-C. So I have to...
You're in dongle central, my friend.
Yeah. But actually, this seemed to work well. I got a dongle that was much cheaper than the Apple dongle. They make like a $70 adapter that goes from USB-C to USB-A, another USB-C, because you may need that pass-through for power, and it's HDMI out. That cost $70 at the Apple Store. I bought one on Amazon that was $30. I suppose I can put a link in the show notes at Hey.film. What's funny, though, is I didn't even buy it for the MacBook Pro. I brought my Nintendo Switch here, and I thought rather than bringing that little dock along with it just to get HDMI out, you can buy these little dongles, and they plug in USB-C on the bottom of the Switch, and then you have your power and your HDMI out. And apparently it works for both the Nintendo Switch and the MacBook Pro.
I wonder how many watts it is. Like, I wonder if it'll charge while the laptop's actually in use, or if it's just more of a trickle charge while it's closed.
Right. Well, that's one question I had is they give you what looks like a pretty hefty power block for the MacBook Pro. Yep. It looks like, you know, these 15-inch ones have always needed more power. And it's delivering that power through USB-C. So what happens if I plug in my computer to, like, any old USB charger? Or like a power bank or something. Could it get any power through USB-C, or does it need that super high wattage?
Yes, it can. It might, trickle charge the battery, but it might not be enough for it to switch off battery power, right? Unless you like turn it off. So I think they recommend you use the one that comes with it.
Yeah. Do you know if there's a danger to using the wrong ones?
I don't think so. I think it's smart enough not to do anything that'll hurt anything.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we have a couple questions today that I wanted to get to before the main question segment of our show, just because they apply to traveling and run and gun stuff. They're both about audio and how we sync audio. I think it's something I take for granted. I think it's not too hard for us, but people are curious. We have a YouTube comment from Terme Bergamo, who's wondering how we shoot and sync with a separate audio recorder, which is exactly what we're doing right now for the podcast, right?
Ta-da! This mic is not attached to this camera. It is attached to a Zoom H4n, which is the older version, I think, of something similar you use, right?
Yeah, I'm using the Zoom H5, which is, just the newer model. And I have my Asden mic plugged into that. So after this, I will have a video file from the GH5 that I'm shooting on. I'll have an audio file, a wave file from the Zoom H5. You will send me your footage and your audio over...
Which are separate, yeah.
Yeah. And then in Final Cut, I just can take both things, the audio and the video, and you can just select both of them and right-click, and synchronize is built into the application. Which I believe it's also built into Premiere these days.
I would think so, but I actually don't know for sure. But it would be silly for it not to have that.
So your editing software probably can handle this what it's doing is it's just looking at the audio of the video file. So you need to have audio coming through the camera.
You need to have audio coming from the mic. Even though it's bad audio, it's good for syncing purposes.
Right. and the computer just listens to both, puts them together, and that seems to work well for us. We just have to turn down the bad audio after we sync.
So here's where that doesn't work well for me is I have had some weddings, and I think we've talked about this before, but where I hire somebody else to shoot for me.
Yeah.
When I'm shooting a wedding, I have a tendency to hit record on my Panasonic camera and hit record on my audio recorder and just let all the cameras and everything roll for the entire, say, ceremony, right? So I have one long video file from each camera and one long audio file from every audio recorder, because usually I'm using more than one audio recorder as well.
Yeah. And that way, if you make if something gets messed up or something, I mean, really you only need to sync one part at the beginning, and they should be in sync the rest of the video.
And handy tip, what I usually do there is I will keyword tag a very small section of the event, and I'll find that same section, that maybe 20, 30-second section in each of those clips, and keyword tag it, and then I can go in and synchronize just those segments, so it synchronizes really fast because it's just looking at 30 seconds instead of an hour-long video, and then I just go into that synchronize and I expand it all back out, and everything is perfectly synced.
Using that technique, that kind of blew my mind. I didn't realize you could sync just part of a video file in Final Cut to speed up the process.
You're basically doing some of the work for it, right? You're saying only look at these little sections, and so that well, you have to give it sections that overlap, so you have to know that.
I realized you don't even need to necessarily do the keyword step. I'll just set an in point, out point on a clip, and then set an in point, out point on a different clip. Them. Yeah, and you could select both those ranges and sync.
Yeah.
If you don't
I usually do the keyword just because it's an easy way to basically save a selection.
Yeah, you can't accidentally get rid of it. And if you don't have audio syncing directly built into your app, there is a program that people have used for years called Pluralize, which also does that.
And I do still use that, and I kind of got off track with my story, but when I have other people shoot for me with cameras that have recording limits, right? So they're used to shooting style is record a little bit, stop, record a little bit, stop. So I end up with, 50 clips over one event.
Right.
And I have found Final Cut does not handle that well. Trying to say, here's 50 clips, line them up with an audio recorder.
I feel like Final Cut can handle it can handle like 4 things or maybe 5 things. It can't do much more than that.
But Pluralize does a great job at that. So when I get projects like that, that's when I bust out Pluralize, which does all the sync for me. And I'm banging my watch on the table. And then that exports a timeline right back into Final Cut, and away I go.
Yeah. We also have a question related to that it's a YouTube comment from Ryan M. Keene, wondering what our setups are when we're shooting video and audio as a lone producer. And for me, it's similar to this. It's usually an audio recorder. I guess recently I've been using the XLR1 adapter for the GH5, and I can put it all into one camera. But I still like having an audio recorder because you can do some interesting things. You can put an audio recorder and a microphone all the way across a room and then shoot something from far away. But he also is looking at his own gear and wondering if he should do this differently. He says currently he uses a Tascam DR70, which is one of those kind of bigger Tascams. It's a 4 input XLR recorder.
Like one that looks more like a little rectangle, like a big chunky thing.
Yeah, it's kind of flat. It's low, but pretty big. I actually used to have one of those. He's also using an NTG3 microphone from Rode. I love that mic. And he's using a USB power bank, which he says he's using for filming with the GH4. I assume he means he's actually plugging in the audio recorder to the USB power bank.
Okay. Which
is something I realized I can do with my Zoom. I actually have it plugged in right now via USB, so I don't have to worry about the battery power. But I guess he's feeling like that's a lot of gear to have the big audio recorder, the USB power bank, pretty big microphone. So he's wondering if he should get the lighter Tascam DR40, which is a 2 XLR input recorder, and possibly the NTG4 Plus, which is a cheaper microphone and doesn't require phantom power. It has battery built in. And I guess he's just wondering if that makes any more sense.
Well, I think it's always nice to reduce the amount of gear you have to carry with you, right? Does that DR70, is it battery powered, or does it require an external battery source? I guess that's what I don't understand.
Well, yeah, it shouldn't require it. I guess I'm wondering what kinds of things Ryan is shooting. Maybe he's shooting really long events and he's worried about his battery life. Because I think the Tascam DR70 takes 4 AA batteries, which is twice as many as the Zoom H5 takes and probably twice as many as the DR40 takes. And I just have never had a problem with batteries. Like, you throw 4 batteries in that thing, you carry 4 extra batteries in your bag, and there may be a point in time you need to switch them, but that usually hasn't been a problem for me.
Yeah, with my H4n, like, I could shoot all day and not kill a set of 2 AA batteries in it.
Yeah.
But I always put fresh ones in it beforehand. But if battery life's an issue, I would definitely switch to something that can power itself for a full day of shooting without going down. Now, my H4n has something called, like, oh gosh, I forget what it's called, but it's like
like stamina mode.
Stamina mode, yeah, I think that's right. So it reduces the number of options. Like, you can't record to MP3s, you have to record WAV files, and it limits some of your options. But it runs for a lot longer that way, and that's usually how I use it.
It sounds like it's really just reducing like processing power needed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think lighter gear is always better, and if you can figure out a way not to use the USB power bank, that's probably smart.
Yep, and do like Griffin, figure out where you can clamp stuff. You know, I'm always impressed when I shoot with Griffin and he's got his audio recorder clamped to his tripod on the side, and he kind of has it set up where he can move around really easily, even though he's operating a lot of different gear at once.
It is. That's another reason I like using an audio recorder separate from like an XLR adapter on the camera. Is a lot of times when I'm shooting, I don't need everything in my hand. I could put an audio recorder on my belt or in a messenger bag over my shoulder. Like, I can kind of distribute the gear so it's not all in my hands weighing me down.
Yep.
Well, in just a moment, we're going to answer your questions about storyboarding, tripods, and if you need an infrared neutral density filter.
Hey Filmmakers is brought to you by Tongle, the creative network where anyone anywhere has the opportunity to make content for brands and get paid.
So maybe if you're in the US celebrating Thanksgiving this week, hopefully you have some time off work, it might be a good time for you to take a look at Tongle, where Tongle always has lots of different projects that you could potentially do on the site to get paid. But one of the ones they're doing is it's called the YouTube Pilot Portal, and they're looking for content for their own YouTube channel, content that would inspire filmmakers, maybe teach. So maybe if you have an idea for a filmmaking show, you can make a pilot, or you can pitch a pilot, and if they like your idea, they may ask you to make more, and you can get paid to develop content for their YouTube channel.
Get all the details by visiting tongle.com/projects. That's tongal.com/projects.
Our first question today is a YouTube comment from Nate's Film Tutorials. He is wondering what tripod we would recommend for run and gun filmmaking. His budget is $200.
$200. Tripods always seem to cost more than I think they should.
Yeah. I feel like when we got started in filmmaking, like a Manfrotto tripod was only like $150 or something.
I think we spent more than that. I think we spent like $300 altogether on each tripod. Am I wrong?
Yeah, because you may buy legs that are $150 and then a head that costs another $100. Yeah, these days I feel like if I was buying a tripod to do everything I needed to do, I probably would spend at least $250, maybe as much as $400.
You've got a really nice travel one that's carbon fiber, right?
Yeah, I have the MePhoto carbon fiber. I think it's called the MePhoto Road Trip. And the carbon fiber one is more expensive. I may have spent over $300 on it. But I think the aluminum version, which, it's funny, the weight difference isn't crazy. I think it's like 4 pounds for the aluminum version and 3 pounds for the carbon fiber, which...
Well, it's 25% less weight.
Right. But it's also like twice as expensive.
See, good at math, guys. See that?
So if you buy the aluminum one, I think it's only like $150 or something. I guess the only downside of that kind of tripod, I love how lightweight it is, but it's a little bit short. So it's great for sitting down interviews. But if I was interviewing a basketball player standing up, I don't think the tripod would go tall enough. And the head is not a fluid head. It's just a ball head, and you could set it and forget it, but you're not going to want to you can't do panning motions and things like that.
So what's your final recommendation? Are you still buying Manfrotto?
I still like Manfrotto, but I also think Manfrotto is hard to get for that price point. You're going to have to spend more to get something good with Manfrotto. I'm not actually familiar with too many other brands. I know that Manfrotto also has a lightweight travel one called the Be Free. I would say there will be a lot of different brands going on sale. I feel like tripods always go on sale for Cyber Monday. So on this Monday may be the time to try to get a tripod for under 200.
Yep, but definitely make sure you're getting one that's big enough. I have made that mistake. I bought a tripod way too short to use, and it sat in my closet for years, and I found the perfect use for it. Do you know what it is?
What's that?
It's this podcast right here. I've got a little tiny tripod on the desk.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I needed. So that paid off.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Cheaper tripods will always be shorter, and then you just find, oh, wait, I can't use it for an event where I need to be up high at the back of the room or something.
Yep. And spending good money on a tripod, like I'm still using the tripod we bought in high school.
Yeah.
However many years, 19, 18 years ago, whatever that was. So, I mean, they last. So it's maybe worth, if you have to stretch your budget, it's not the worst thing in the world to spend money on.
Yeah. I also think you probably, depending on what you need, you may want to spend more money on the head if that's where if you need to do pans and stuff.
Definitely.
You probably get away with cheaper legs.
All right, we got a tweet from Toby Cook, who's looking at getting individual ND filters rather than a variable ND. Do I need an IR neutral density with the GH5, or is non-IR okay?
So I'm glad Toby is getting individual ND filters. I've found that I prefer to shoot with just static ND filters rather than a variable. A variable can be really useful, but I'm sure the image quality is better through static. And also I realize most of the time I only need a few different kinds of ND filters. I don't really need that whole range. Mm-hmm. But his question made me really curious because I realized I didn't know anything about infrared neutral density filters and why you would even want that. But it kind of makes sense because camera sensors are designed to pick up infrared, UV light, and visible light, and then they put a filter on it inside the camera. Like Panasonic puts a filter called a hot mirror, which blocks out most of the infrared spectrum, but you're still getting some of it. If it's strong infrared light, then you'll get some of it in the picture. So I guess an IR ND filter, not only is it working as an ND filter to make your image darker so you can shoot outside with a wide open lens, but it also blocks out more infrared light. People will say, I mean, you should look at some side-by-side tests. People will say like, oh, look, I'm getting less chromatic aberration and stuff, or, I'm getting a different color cast when I knock out the infrared light. But I don't really notice the difference. And I feel like they're probably more important for photography when you're doing long exposures, and you would get a lot of infrared in the picture. But because the cameras already have an infrared hot mirror built in, they're already blocking that light. I can't imagine that I would see much of a difference.
In conclusion, no, you do not need an infrared neutral density filter.
I mean, I would take a look. Maybe you want it, but I definitely don't care. And I
was just looking at my ND filter I've got sitting on my desk right here. Remember, I've got that extra one because you gave me one when I bought one. And I haven't returned it or sold it yet, which I should do. I don't see anything about infrared on here at all. So,
yeah, I assume you'd have to spend more money to get one with infrared. Here's a good comment for you, Nick. This is a YouTube comment from Matter Graphica, wondering what would be the recommended PC requirements for editing 4K videos. His computer is actually pretty old, so he hasn't even bothered editing 4K, but even 1080 is kind of tough on his. He has an old 2008 24-inch iMac. He's running 4 gigabytes of RAM and a 256 megabyte NVIDIA GeForce video card. And he would love to upgrade, but just, I don't know, the computer works. And he's wondering if there's a way that he can get by.
Well, I think it's going to be tough on a machine that old, is probably, and an iMac is not particularly upgradable. So, I mean, we kind of had this conversation, me and you, didn't we, as we talked about what kind of laptop you should get for your needs, right? We were kind of comparing the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which is just a dual-core processor, with a 15-inch MacBook Pro, which is quad-core, and, of course, has dedicated graphics. And there's pros and cons to both.
Like, I was kind of sold on how compact the 13-inch was, but you told me that I'd probably get similar performance for most applications between the dual-core and the quad-core, but where I would really notice the impact is on like render times, and that is important to me. So I ultimately went with the more expensive 15-inch.
Yeah, a lot of computer tasks do not parallelize very well, which means you can't take advantage of all those processor cores. Exporting video is one of the few workloads that's perfect for a multi-core processor. So I would expect a dual core versus a quad core processor to really be about twice as fast on a quad core. And I know that's important to you since you work late nights waiting to get videos online. So important to you. I use a 13-inch MacBook Pro with a dual core processor, and I'm able to edit 4K reasonably well. It's not like insanely fast, but it works well enough that I can edit the footage off my G85 in 4K.
Yeah.
But if I were doing it all day, every day, I would want I'd want the quad core processor. A few other things, I think we said, and you were looking at this on both, but you definitely want SSD. You don't want to be dealing with spinning hard drives anymore. So all SSD, and you want a big one, right? Especially if you're dealing with 4K. I think a 1 terabyte SSD is kind of a minimum to get you by. 16 gigs of RAM is probably a minimum, especially on these modern Macs where you can't upgrade these things very easily. I would be looking at that. And
that's one thing I found when I got a new iMac last year. Because my previous iMac, he has a 2008 iMac. What was mine? Mine was like a 2010 iMac or something, 2011 iMac, and it couldn't even play 4K 60p footage. So that was ultimately why I ended up getting a new computer. But
and of course, if you're willing to edit in proxy mode, if you can do offline editing, you can get away with a lot lower specs. But if you want to edit the actual 4K files on the go, you're going to need a little bit more. Now, if you're looking at iMacs, Apple is releasing, I don't know exactly when, but soon-ish, the iMac Pro, which is going to have the Intel Workstation Xeon class processors. And what those have is even more cores, right? So your i7 in your iMac and on your new laptop is a quad core, but you can get... you'll be able to get an iMac Pro with like 16 or 32 cores. So you can imagine for things like exporting how much faster that's going to be.
Yeah. And you only have to spend like $6,000 on the...
I think 6 is going to be like the starting price. But the people who buy these, they're going to configure them out at 10 grand easy.
Yeah.
But, as you've learned, like export time is life, right? When you're in a production house and that's what matters, you spend that kind of money, it's worth it.
Yeah. Now, Graphica, let's say he could upgrade his RAM. Let's say he could upgrade to 16 gigabytes. Would that even do anything for him when he has an older processor and maybe he has a spinning hard drive? Or
I think if you could get the RAM up to 8 and an SSD, you might be able to eliminate some of that 1080 performance problem. I'm not sure you're going to be able to edit 4K, but an SSD is a huge upgrade. On some of those old iMacs, you can, pull the glass off and replace the hard drive. So it's something you could look at. That would be the biggest upgrade.
I did that with my first
SSD in there.
I did that with my first iMac. I also did it with my MacBook Pro. I installed an SSD in both of them a few years after I got it. And I do feel like, whereas normally I might only get 3 or 4 years out of these computers, I feel like I was getting 5 and 6 years just because I did that.
Yep. We've got a tweet. Oh boy. Help me, Griffin. Who do we have a tweet from?
The tweet is from Abdusalam Salik. And the question...
And he says, hey, Griffin, have you ever shot a corporate film before, besides Sriracha, if that counts? What are the top tips a starting filmmaker should have in mind when making corporate videos? Would you call Sriracha a corporate video?
Well, that was the first thing I addressed in my tweet back to Abdusalam. I told him that although Sriracha is about the company Hoifang Foods, they didn't pay me to make it. They didn't ask me to make it. I just made it because I wanted to.
He's saying you sound like a corporate shill. How do you feel about that?
Well, in some ways I am a corporate shill because I do a lot of work for different companies. But I do try to approach it in a way that still feels honest. I guess I feel like documentary works really well for companies trying to tell their stories. So even when I go in and I'm essentially making a commercial for a company or like a training video or something, I still like to approach it as a documentary. Like, just let's get the real thoughts of people in this business across and let's tell their story. And you don't have to feel like you're selling your soul to make these kinds of videos. I think you can use the same skill set. Here's a YouTube comment we got from Tool Z. Wondering if we can talk about storyboarding. He did a travel video a while ago, but he's not happy with it. And I guess he just didn't like how he was transitioning from one shot to the next, and maybe storyboarding would help with that. So yeah, I imagine you're like me. You're probably not ever doing storyboarding.
No, not really. Although, sometimes when you're editing, I think I don't ever actually write out a storyboard, but I do kind of try and think about, visually the story I'm telling. For me, it's a lot about like motion of the camera and things like that. I'm not sure if that counts or if that's what he's asking, but I try and piece things together in a way that makes sense visually. I'm not explaining that well. You go.
No, that made perfect sense. And I find that the only times I actually draw out storyboards are when I was working at Bloomberg. Occasionally we would do parody videos like we did in Ocean's 11 sort of thing. So for me, I'm looking back at the original trailer for Ocean's 11 and I'm drawing out some of the iconic shots that are there because I want to make sure when I'm shooting it, I really get the framing right, and I want to think through that process of how am I going to make this look the way that I want it to look. But outside of those kind of videos, for the stuff that I shoot, I guess because I'm my own editor, I naturally have a sense of what I'm going to need. And I guess it kind of goes back to my news training. When I was in college, I shot news, and we always learned one of the smartest things you could do, especially when you're stuck on a tripod with a big camera, is set your camera on the tripod, and while you're there in that one position, shoot a wide shot, zoom out or zoom in, shoot a medium shot, zoom in again, shoot a close-up. And that way you always, of almost everything you shoot, it's the subject of your story, you have options. And I find when I edit, you're often starting with a wide shot because you want to establish the space that we're in, and then we want to move in and show more emotion. So I don't think it necessarily takes storyboarding to do that, but you do kind of want to think visually about getting a diverse set of shots so that when you're in the edit, you have some choices.
Yep.
And yeah, like when you're doing a wedding video, if every single shot is a slider from left to right or a pan or something, you are in the edit eventually going to go like, okay, I'm feeling a little stuck in this motion. And you probably, I bet you're finding that you're editing a few moving shots, and then you need something that's not moving to kind of break it up.
Yep, exactly. Or like you said, moving the opposite direction, or sometimes I'll cheat and just, reverse a shot just so I have the opposite motion.
Yeah. Speaking of cheating and flipping things the other direction, I think people noticed in our last episode that you've been flipping your shot.
Well, to be honest, I haven't been doing anything. You've been flipping my shot.
I've been flipping it. But yeah, because you changed the direction you were shooting your...
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Today we're back to normal just because I happen to be shooting the opposite direction from normal. But for the last few weeks, you flipped the direction you were shooting, which meant that we are both facing the same way, which wouldn't look good in the split screen podcast video. We want to be looking at each other. So rather than me moving, I just had Nick change his desktop background on his computer, because that would be the only thing.
The image so that when it flipped, it was back the right way.
Yeah,
so today, when we're not flipping my shot, I actually had to go back and find the original, which I couldn't find. So I had to flip the flip shot, and now we're good.
Yeah.
So I've got both versions.
But yeah, our normal workflow is that he sends me the footage, and then I bring it into Final Cut, and I just add there's an effect called flip, and it just flips it horizontally.
And we're so worried about my desktop, which is probably cut off by the line right here, so no one can see it anyway, but that's what I worry about.
The only weird thing about doing that is most humans don't have symmetrical faces. And so I know your face well enough that every time I flip it, I'm like, well, that doesn't look quite right.
Nick looks weird.
like I know one of my eyes is higher than the other, so I'd probably look a little bit strange.
And the red hair, but...
Our final question today comes from Sam Mason. This is a tweet that he sent us. He's wondering if Vimeo VHX is a good platform to host his new TV show and get a good profit margin. Do you know what he's talking about when he says Vimeo VHX?
Nope.
So
I'm assuming it's a new platform Vimeo offers for subscriber content.
Well, had you heard of VHX before?
Oh, I have heard of VHX before. That's why they were their own company. Vimeo bought them up.
Yeah. I think it was like last year Vimeo bought them. They were competitors. They were both doing very similar things. In fact, when I came out with Sriracha, VHX was pretty high on my list for potentially selling it through there. It had some benefits over Vimeo at the time. It was really customizable. But at the end of the day, I just thought Vimeo is a platform that people are familiar with. It actually looked better when I uploaded it to Vimeo, so I went with that. That was 2013, so I'm sure a lot has changed. And now Vimeo owns VHX, and they've turned it into, they're calling it now Vimeo OTT. Doesn't OTT just mean TV that's coming over the internet?
Over the top? Is that what that means?
Yeah, I think it just means over the top, which is kind of funny that we're still in a world where we're differentiating between traditional cable and broadcast television versus internet television when we're probably not far off from it all being delivered to your home the same way, right?
Yeah, a lot of it's over IP already, even if it does come into a cable box.
So I think that's always a funny phrase they use in television, this OTT, over the top thing. But I guess Vimeo OTT, which is also called VHX, is more of like a subscriber model. So I wonder if that's what Sam wants to do. You can pay, it looks like you can pay as low as $1 per subscriber per month. So I suppose you just have to ask yourself, do you want to do a subscriber model where maybe people have access to the entire show, but they're paying $5 a month or something? And if that's the case, I don't know if Vimeo takes a cut of that or if they just take their $1. Actually, it says transaction fees. So $1 plus a transaction fee of 2.5% plus 30%. So let's say you charge $5 every month. You would lose, let's see.
Quite a bit.
Well, you'd lose 12 cents to the transaction fee, or 13 cents, and you'd lose 30 cents. They add that in. So we're talking about 43 cents plus the dollar. So you're losing $1.43 per $5, which means you're losing 28% and you're keeping 72%.
Which I guess isn't too bad. And that's probably a really good model for people with really niche content, something that's going to appeal very strongly to a smaller set of customers, right?
Yeah. But I feel like it could be really hard to make a monthly fee. I mean, you have to make sure you're delivering a lot to your audience, because you got to think people right now can spend, $10 for Netflix a month?
Or more than that now. I just got to notice it's going up. My plan's going up to $13.99 a month.
Oh, wow.
But I'm on Hulu, like the Ultra HD one.
Hulu might be $8 a month. So you got to think, if people are able to go to Hulu and spend $8 a month and get a lot of really high-end television content, is anyone willing to pay you $2 a month, $3 a month, $4 a month for maybe your one TV show? I don't know.
I think it depends on the content. You need highly differentiated content that people can't get elsewhere. And that to me says niche content, right? Like nobody's out there making really good model railroad weekly videos or something like that. Right. And there's probably a very small community that's very passionate that would be interested in paying for that kind of content.
I also bet training videos would do really well. I mean, if people feel like they're getting value every month from your channel, they might be willing to spend $20 a month.
Let's put the podcast on there.
Yeah. All right, everyone, we're going behind a paywall.
Give me the money. No, we're not.
If you don't want to do the OTT solution, which is a monthly cost to you per your subscribers, you also could just do the traditional Vimeo, which is what I'm doing for the film. I mean, you could sell individual TV episodes for, I think, as low as $1. Maybe you can go even lower. But that might be worth checking out as well.
Cool. Well, it sounds like an interesting take.
Yeah. Good luck, Sam.
Good luck, Sam. We did it yet again.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. Even though you're traveling.
I suppose we should get back to our families, spend time with them.
I can hear my family right outside right now. It's very loud in the room next door.
Yeah.
Which is always good. But it's holidays, This is what happens. It's okay. Well, Griffin, enjoy your Thanksgiving tomorrow.
Yeah. And everyone look out for my Cyber Monday video. the way I do this is I normally film it at like 5 a.m. on Monday because I want to learn about all the deals that are available, but get it out to you as early as possible. Also, I'm flying on Monday, so I need to shoot and edit the video before I leave.
Good thing you got that quad-core processor to export that bad boy as fast as possible. Yes. Sorry,
all right.
Got a little overly excited. All right, my friend.
Yep.
We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you next week.
See you, everybody. Bye-bye. Mise en scène. Sweet.
Why'd you say mise en scène?
I don't know. I was thinking and scene, and then I went to mise en scène.